Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Season 5, Episode 23 of My Hero Academia. So, this means after today, we're only 2 episodes away from the finale, or from finishing the season. And I think I talked about it quite a bit, but I've talked about it before. And I just want to mention it quickly here again. There have been people, manga fans specifically, who have been complaining about this season. None of the people complaining I've seen have been anime onlys. It has specifically been manga fans specifically complaining about how it's adapted, and specifically complaining that it's leaving out key information. Specifically, there was a bit of key information at the beginning of this arc that they say left out. I was told what that was. It's not key information. In fact, it's not even really important at all. Taking it out did nothing to harm this arc, and honestly, the series at all. And overall, people have also been complaining about the pacing of this season, saying it was way too slow. And again, this is all like manga readers saying this and all. And I've just not understood where any of this was coming from. Because as I've stated in the past, this is easily one of the show's best seasons from the anime perspective and all. It did so many amazing things for the characters and their development. And the quote-unquote slower pacing was necessary to facilitate that. A lot of people think that this is an action show, and it's not. My Hero Academia is not an action show. It is a breakdown of how people are affected by a superhuman society. It is a character study, if anything, that just features action. The best parts of this series are the parts that aren't action-based, the parts that are character-focused, because that's what it's about. That's where the strengths of My Hero Academia lie. And honestly, that's where the strengths of a lot of superhero media lies. Not in the action, but in the character development, in the world building. And you could say that about almost anything, mind you. Almost any series or movie or stuff, like characters and story are always the most important. Unless it's, I don't know, a game like Tetris or something where there is no characters or story, or the gameplay doesn't rely on that. But for the vast majority of the time with media, that's what needs to be focused on first and foremost. And honestly, there's been some points in the first few seasons of this series that really relied way too heavily on action. And the story kind of suffered a little because of it. And the characters didn't get as much development as they should have because of it. Because the action took precedence. So the fact that they, the people working on this season and everything, the people at Studio Bones and all, the fact that they took this opportunity to slow things down and actually focus on what's important here is a good thing. I don't know if I would say absolutely that this is my favorite season of the series, but it's definitely one of them. It's definitely one of the top two. I just don't know whether I like this one or season 3 more. It's kind of between those two. Um, and again, not for any action or especially cool stuff like that, but for the character development and story. Though that's the reason it's those two. But anyway, so this arc, My Villain Academia, the one that had been long awaited for so long, is pretty good so far. I don't know if I would say it's the best or anything. And I know some people would try to say, "Oh, but if you checked out the manga, it would definitely would be." It's like, no. Usually, reading the manga actually makes me like something less because I don't like manga. I don't like the format. I get into manga less than I do anime, like always. There is no exceptions to that. I don't like manga, so reading the manga won't like make me like this anymore. The point of the matter here is it has nothing to do with the medium or whatnot as to why I think this is not quite as amazing as people hyped it up to be. It's the specific content. It's the fact that this arc is basically just the um oh my goodness, why is their name escaping me? The League of Villains taking on the Metal Liberation Army in a very basic, bland way. Like, again, don't get me wrong. Like I said, this is one of my favorite seasons, and this arc is definitely one of the reasons why. But for how much this arc was built up, all it's been is, oh, the League of Villains are trying to recruit Gigantomachia. Oh, they're dealing with the Metal Liberation Army now. Oh, they fight them briefly in a city. That's it. I was expecting something more, you know? It just feels like this is small compared to other things it could be. Um, the best part that's come out of this is the character development and the quirk development we've gotten for certain characters. Again, that stuff is the best part of this series. Um, the development we've gotten for Himiko was great. We're getting a little bit for uh, Shigaraki, it seems. Even twice is gained some development. And these things are good. These are the kinds of things I like to see. But on the other hand, we have just. I don't know how this is going to end in these last 3 episodes. This episode and then the last 2 after this. Because it's like it's going really fast. Like, this is what I will complain about the pacing with. This arc needs to be slowed the fuck down a little. But it also needs to be kind of restructured a bit too. Like, it shouldn't just be these two sides fighting like an enclosed battle in a city like this that's run by the Metal Liberation Army. And Gigantomachia, that entire plot point, is probably coming back, I assume. But right now, it's just kind of eh. Um, but I just feel like while this arc is really good and has done some really good things, it does need work. It should have been thought about a little better because it's still excuse me. It still has issues that could have been easily worked out. That's my view on it, at least. Um, but yeah, I'm still very much enjoying it. I'm still interested to see what they do in these last 3 episodes. Um, but yeah, I just wish there were a few changes made to how this arc is structured and whatnot. Um, and also the fact that they're just kind of like taking out Meta Liberation Army members with no real like concern is just a little underwhelming to me. It's like they've had a little bit of issue, but not much that really makes a difference. I'd say. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And again, as much as I seem like I'm just completely criticizing this arc, I do very much enjoy it still. But we are going to just get on with the episodes, see what it has in store for us, and hope for the best. Hope that these last 3 episodes really impress me. We will have to see. Um, excuse me. Yeah, woke up not that long ago, so my throat is getting acclimated to that. But let's get this started. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this episode had 2 main portions to it. The continued fight against the Meta Liberation Army, culminating in Shigaraki versus Redestro, and the second part being the flashbacks, the backstory of Shigaraki. Another character we're getting a lot of big development on. And with that second part, I'll say right off the bat, I was not entirely blind to it. I didn't know everything. I didn't know all the details behind it, but I knew that Shigaraki had a tragic backstory involving him accidentally killing his family. That's what I knew about it. So that part didn't surprise me as much as it should have. But I didn't know all the details. I didn't know like the abuse he was suffering. I didn't know how his family viewed it or when his quirk manifested or any of that kind of stuff. I just knew the most base detail about what the backstory was about. So let's talk about this. So the first part of the episode is, like I said, focused on the continued battle with the Meta Liberation Army and just the pure escalation of it. We get to see the aftermath of the tower crumbling, where Redestro has unleashed a much larger portion of his power, and we find out the exact nature of it. Redestro can build up stress. He literally holds his emotions in. The stresses that he faces, he holds in, able to utilize it to make himself grow and become stronger with this physical kind of armor-like substance with his skin. And apparently, we've only seen up to 80% so far. We have not seen his 100% form with that, so that's interesting. But we see throughout this episode that stress is a major factor in it, not only with Redestro's quirk, but stress is a major factor in Shigaraki's life. All the way back from when he was a kid as Tenko Shimura, when the stress is what caused him to scratch at his skin aggressively, to feel itchy constantly. See, let's talk about this because I know I'm kind of skipping ahead to the second part here before I even finish talking about the first. But I really want to talk about this point. Um, Stress is a funny thing in real life, and just like we see and hear with Shigaraki's itchiness, stress can cause side effects, physical tics, and certain like actions. Um, Obviously, people know that stress can gray your hair quicker. Obviously, it's not gonna like turn your hair gray or white overnight or anything like that, like some anime have shown. Um, but it can cause your hair to gray a lot earlier in life, or in some cases, it has even caused people to lose their hair earlier. Stress can cause itchiness. This is a legitimate thing. Um, Stress can cause fidgeting and discomfort. Stress can cause other physical tics such as eye twitching or constantly like rubbing on skin and stuff like that. A lot of different things like this. So, seeing that this scratching that we've seen Shigaraki do throughout the series is a sign of stress is not surprising, but seeing how it's implemented here and how it's explained through his backstory, that's what's the surprising part of it. Um, so I like that this episode with both him and Redestro covers how stress can be used and how stress can manifest within people in different ways. So Shigaraki and Redestro continue to fight, but we then see that Shigaraki finally remembers everything from his past that he had been trying to box in. Um, when he was a kid, his father was extremely abusive, like extremely abusive, as in physical abuse, as in emotional abuse. And Shigaraki or Tenko Shimura at the time, all he wanted was to be a hero. It was his dream, it was his goal. But because of Nana Shimura um, leaving to fight crime and then never coming back because she died to All for One, Tenko's father, Nana Shimura's son, um, viewed it as abandonment. He felt abandoned by by his mother, and felt that because of her actions, all heroes had to be like this. That they put others' lives ahead of their own families, and that they would just completely abandon those that they should, in his eyes, be caring about the most, in order to focus on other people. And because of this, he became completely incensed with the hero society. He grew to hate it, he grew to resent it. And so he instilled this strict policy in his family's house that they're not allowed to talk about heroes, and he will dole out extreme punishment if they do, especially with his kids. But in secret, his kids love heroes, and they even wanted to be heroes together. But one day, after Tenko's sister, Hana, I believe it was, finds a picture of their grandmother, of Nana Shimura, um, and finds out that it's, well, their grandmother, and shows it to Tenko, he gets angry and, like, Tenko is punished because as a kid, as a girl, his sister does kind of blame him. And this is a thing kids do. They like to blame others a lot. And not own up to their mistakes. But also what she did later, apologizing to him and saying like she didn't mean it or anything. It's like kids will do that too. They'll come back later and apologize and everything because kids are just brutally honest with their feelings. Um, but we see that even the father was admitting at the time that he was thinking he was going too far and was going to apologize to his son and everything. But that's when Tenko's quirk activated. While he was crying out in the yard, hugging the family dog, his quirk activated, and unintentionally, completely unintentionally, he murdered the dog. And it's like, I'm thinking it's because it was just unlocked and it was so new to him then. Because currently, like when he uses his quirk on someone, there isn't all that blood. Like when he dissolves something, they just turn into dust and there's not all that blood. But when we saw the dogs dissolve, there was a shit ton of blood there. It was pretty gruesome. Um, his sister came out to apologize to him, and she saw the dog and freaked out. And we don't even know if she knew it was her brother who did it. He didn't even know it was him at first. He thought some villain had come and was attacking them. So he ran after his sister, scared and freaking out, and he touched her and killed her as well. And again, he even said at that point he still thought it was a villain. But then he used it again and ended up killing his mother and grandparents and destroying the yard and everything and part of the house. And I think that's when he realized it was him. So when his father came out, saw the absolute devastation, saw the corpses, the remains of the corpses of his family, he freaked out and lost it and started attacking his son. And so Tenko, who had realized by this point that it was him, who by this point knew that he had done this and was probably quite sick of his father abusing him, he snapped. And like he said, in that moment he wanted to kill him. He attacked his father with the pure intent to murder him. It was the only one of those of his family that he killed that was not an accident. Because of his father's extreme abuse, he snapped. Because of all the stress from accidentally killing his other family members, who he did love more so than his father, because they actually supported him more so, he snapped. Because he was freaking out and couldn't control his abilities that had just unlocked, he snapped. And through this, he killed intentionally his own father because he couldn't take it anymore. Because the stress had built up and become too much for him to handle. And it's horrifically tragic. One cannot deny that. His backstory is extremely tragic, and you do feel bad for him. Genuinely, you really feel bad for him. Just like with Stain, who you understood the point of view of, even if you didn't agree with his actions and still see him as a villain, which you should. You understood his point of view. Just like with that, you sympathize with Shigaraki here. You understand why he became the way he is, why he's evil now. You fully get who Shigaraki as a character is. He is a victim. A victim of a destructive, murderous quirk that he didn't ask for, that he didn't want, and that activated at the worst possible time because of him also being a victim of family abuse. And because of all this, he snapped and he became evil. And none of this excuses his actions. None of this excuses his villainy at all. But it does explain it. It definitely shows us what drove him to be the way that he is. Just like earlier in the season, it did the same with Himiko. Or earlier in the season, just a few episodes ago. It did the same with Himiko for us, explaining her backstory and how she snapped. And I really think, again, that this kind of goes to prove that the best portions of this series are the character development stuff. Easily, Shigaraki's backstory was the best part of this episode. Not Shigaraki versus Redestro. I mean, that was good. I liked it. But the best part of this episode was the backstory, the development, the character work. That's what mattered here. That's what elevated this episode and this arc. It wasn't the action at all. The action was just kind of there. And so it just kind of proves my point with what I said before. And continues to showcase why this season is one of my favorites. I stand by that if this season had been what I guess these manga fans wanted it to be, if it had been more action paced, if it had been faster paced and more exciting and more fight heavy or whatnot, this wouldn't have worked. I fully stand by that. I will fully defend that. This worked because of how character focused this season was. This development worked so well because the entire season was focused on making these character developments and growths and giving us more to the story through that. If this season had been so super action focused and fast paced and everything, this would have felt completely out of place. It would have felt like it just kind of it came out of nowhere. And it would have still been good, but it wouldn't have been as good. It wouldn't have worked as well. Because again, the reason that it did work so well is because of the pacing of this season, because of the character development focus. And I will stand by that. But yeah, it's clear now why Shigaraki is the way he is, why he's so heavily invested in destruction, in destroying this world. This world, in a way, is what caused that tragedy. This superhuman society is what he views to be the catalyst for that event. Even if it's something he's tried to block out of his head, it's something that has always shaped him and his motivations. And this also explains why he's kind of childlike, comparing everything to video games, being kind of immature, etc., etc. He never had a chance to really grow up. After the events here, after these events, we know All For One ended up picking him up and raising him as a villain, and he was not raised as a person. He was not raised to be, to grow up naturally. He was just raised in his villainy and his hatred of this superhuman society. And so he kind of never got to grow up as an adult, and just stayed very childlike because of it. And that's why he still uses all these video game metaphors and everything, which, I mean, even if he did grow up like naturally as an adult, that would still be fine. But I think that's the reason why he is so immature and why he does act the way he does, and so on and so forth, because of that fact. And again, it's kind of tragic what happened to him. In fact, not even kind of, it is tragic. Like, that is an absolutely horrific incident. And it legitimately hurts to see that kind of thing happen. Because you watch this and you just kind of, unfortunately, imagine that kind of thing happening to your own family, and it hurts. Even if you're not like super close with all the members of your family and everything, it's like you still would never want that. You would never wish that upon them. And it's hard, but at the same time, again, it doesn't excuse his actions. He's still a villain, he's still evil, he's still the bad guy here. But it explains his actions. It helps us understand him a little better. And I love it when a show makes you understand the villain. I love it when a show makes you even sympathize with the villain. Because that's a good villain. A good villain is a person first and foremost. A good villain is human. Someone who has been brought down by the world and has taken the steps into villainy because of it. And yeah, there can be good villains that are just evil for the sake of being evil, who aren't really given backstories or reasonings for their evil. Lady Tremaine in Cinderella is a fantastic example. Maleficent, she's just a petty bitch. And I'm not counting any stupid remakes that ruin the characters. So sometimes villains don't need these big backstories, but when they really get it right, they really get it right. And a really good villain, a lot of times, will have like character development like this. Not always. Sometimes it's not needed, and sometimes creators even play with that to show that it's actually not needed all the time. Like with the Joker, they mess around with that idea of like his backstory all the time, and in truth, a lot of times it's just used to kind of mess with people. It's like, oh, this isn't really what happened. We don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. He doesn't know what happened. They use it to mess with people, because it works within that context to do. But I'm just saying, I just do really like it when they get this right, and they make a good, well-developed villain that is good because of their development and character. And Shigaraki is one of those. Shigaraki is definitely a fantastic villain. He doesn't have the presence currently that All for One has, but still. I'm very interested to see where this goes. Without question, I'm very interested to see where this goes. I mean, we know that it ends up with both the League of Villains and the Liberation Army working together. But how's it going to end at that point? How's it going to get to the point where they are working together? How are they going to come to an understanding or something? And what's going to cause them to be able to work together as a unit. Because we've seen that the League of Villains not really great with working with others. We saw that with the Shiha Kaisai, and so it's like I don't see this particularly working well, but we'll see. Either way, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of My Hero Academia Season 5? And as always, no spoilers. I may know some stuff going forward, but it's usually only minor stuff that I only just find out about through social media without any context or anything. But please, no spoilers. I don't want to get any actual spoilers. I don't want to know anything else going forward if I can help it. I would rather not know anything at all. So, yeah. But tell me your thoughts on this episode, on what happened in this one, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.